Hi, and welcome. I would like to speak to you a bit about the false promise of achieving goals in general. I think if you achieved enough goals in life, you realize that once you reach them, they don't provide lasting fulfillment. And this is in opposition to what we thought they will give us when we set them in the first place, right? We had something in mind, we created this grandiose vision, and we've put all our hopes in having that thing fulfilling everything we need for ourselves to give us the kind of lasting peace of mind that we ultimately all crave in the end. And even if you are old enough, you know that this is a cycle which simply keeps us on the same track, right? Engaged in doing the same thing over and over and over again. Because most often than not, when we reach something, we are celebrating maybe for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, and then we end up feeling again a bit empty. And in order to avoid that kind of feeling of lack, of not enoughness, we are immediately thinking about what we should be doing next, right? And in total honesty, I think we owe this kind of cycle of progress to ourselves because this is what pushed humanity forward for the past, hundreds of thousands of years. People were never content with what they had. They always had to push forward. And that was fine. But that's the nature of evolution. And it's ultimately evolution who is pushing us forward, right? Because our brain is biologically wired to favor this kind of thriving, this kind of pursuit, right? We have in our brains so-called reward pathways. And I'm pretty sure that you are familiar with dopamine, which is the molecule of pursuit, the molecule of motivation, um, not the molecule of pleasure like it's typically known as. And how this works is like we are thinking of something idealistic, right? And the simple fact that we are thinking about it, we release some dopamine. This dopamine will then create a negative feeling immediately by the simple fact that it has to be compensated with a negative spike, if you want. So we think about something pleasurable, then we have some sort of negative, some sort of dopamine spike, and then when this is happening, because all processes are homeostatic processes internally, we have a compensation of the spike, which gives us this kind of lack, this kind of painful feeling, if you want, of not having that thing that we would like, right? And this very thing, this very compensatory mechanism to put us again on a baseline dopamine level, this will set us in motion, right? We are thinking about eating an ice cream, and that feels good. And then we know that we are not eating now an ice cream, which makes us feel some sort of an internal pain that would not have been there if we would not have thought about eating the ice cream, right? But now it's there. And now this very nagging feeling that something is missing, that ice cream is really missing for me now because I conceptually represented it in my mind and now I don't have it. So now I feel pain, I experience pain for lacking a hypothetical ice cream, if you want. That thing will push us forward, right? And I will move and I will go and I will find an ice cream. Either I will go to the fridge, or if I'm really, if that image was very powerful, I might even go to the supermarket and buy some ice cream and eat it, right? But you also know that when you actually eat the ice cream, that's not where you have the biggest release of pleasure, right? You have it in anticipation. You have it while pursuing the act of getting the ice cream. And this is why we are wired like that. Because if we would get lasting fulfillment from enjoying a thing, we would not be motivated the next time to do a similar thing, right? So we had, evolutionary speaking, to always go towards the unknown and try to see what's there, even if it didn't make a lot of sense, right? It was worth it because it might be something useful. There might be some calories there, right? There might be some berries. We might get food. So if we wouldn't have this kind of forward pushing mechanism based on this kind of reward pathways in our brains, we would not do most things, right? And there are studies on rats where basically they fry their dopamine receptors in the brain, and if they put like the food pellet like one rat distance away, they're just not going there, right? They don't have any kind of drive to go there. So dopamine is very important. But the problem is that in real life, especially for people who are high achievers and reached certain peaks in their lives in terms of professional success and so on, this is very detrimental, because always achieving the next thing will not give you the kind of peace of mind that you ultimately hope you would get by being a high achiever in the first place. And that's very tricky, right? And no matter how intelligent a person is, for some reason this very cycle that is repeated endlessly is never brought into deep questioning, right? We take it for granted. We just hope simply for the nth time that this next big thing must do the trick. All the other things that we already did, amazing achievements, yeah, they're not that good, right? But the next thing, right? That would be that's and again, evolution, wired us, if you want to think exactly like this. And thinking, maybe it's even a bit too much said, because we are not actively thinking about the logic behind. Because if we would investigate really this mechanism, we would see that this is actually it's a false promise, right? It's very elusive, it's very alluring, it makes sense on the moment when you think about it. Yeah, but if I have this, I'm pretty sure that I would be set. If I just have this new next car with automatic gearbox and a bit not so old, yeah, it would be much better, right? Well, no. And the fun fact is that we know from the beginning that having that thing will actually not give us this kind of lasting fulfillment, because we've been there a lot of times. But we have this strange capacity to fool ourselves endlessly. And it's really impressive, right? And I think after a lot of reflection that we do it because we want to protect ourselves from the pain of exploring what really matters to us and what kind of goals are worth setting and pursuing in the first place, right? It's easy to pursue a thing for which we get external validation from peers, a goal where we get rewarded by being appreciated by people at work. But it's difficult to set goals that have an intrinsic meaning for us, right?